You've been lied to about birth, about what it is and what it takes from you, and what it can return if you let it. For most of us, birth is something that happens to us. We aren't taught to prepare, we're taught to endure, and then to forget. But there is a woman who remembers, not just facts, wisdom, not just theory, truth from the front lines of over 200 births. She stood in hospitals, she's knelt beside tubs, she's held space for grief, ecstasy, terror, power, all in the same breath. She doesn't offer tips, she offers remembrance of sovereignty, of the body's intelligence, of birth as a portal, not just for babies, but for you. This is not about pain management. This is about power restoration. This is the education you were never given, but always deserved. Her name is Eyla Cuenca, and she's here to tell you the truth. Welcome to Things Your Mother Never Told You. Let's begin. Eyla, I am so excited to have you here on my show and to have this conversation because I have to tell you, there are very few women, aside from my best girlfriend that I've met in the same industry we're about to speak of, that I can really have these conversations with. And that conversation being all about childbirth. Yeah. And you being in the industry, I am so excited for our listeners to be able to really hear from the inside, and such a heart-centered leader that you are, the experience of how you came to this work, how you're serving women, and what you're really seeing. So we're going to just have the whole conversation. But just for those listening, tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you end up in the field of natural childbirth?
So it was around 2011, 2012. I started working in the foster care system as a guardian ad litem. I would spend time in homes, write reports, and submit all of that information to attorneys and judges so that they could properly manage the case and make decisions about this child's life, future, experience. And as I did this work, which was deeply energetically, emotionally heavy, I asked myself the question, why, how did we get here?
Oh, I love that you did that. Yeah, rather than just go and do the job you were asked to do and then leave, to sit with and ponder, if we retrace the steps, is there something that could be done differently that some of this doesn't even have to occur?
Right.
Yes.
Right. And people would say, we have a shortage of foster families. We need more resources. We need more funding. And I was like, that's not what the solution is. Mm-hmm. Like, why is this happening? And there was a specific case of this 2-year-old girl, and they had a restraining order against the mother. So the mother wasn't allowed to even come. The child had been taken away from her. They saw her as unfit, mentally unsound. But she came to one of the visits. She was there when I arrived, and I was supposed to report her immediately, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. I sat with her, and she talked to me about her postpartum depression, which was incredibly severe. Mm. And it was to the point she couldn't care for herself or the child. And she talked to me about the birth and everything that had unfolded. And at that time, I didn't really have the vocabulary or, the rubric for how to hold that space for her. I simply listened. But what became increasingly clear to me as the conversation unfolded was that she had been violated, and she had sustained a level of post-traumatic stress disorder that she could never recover from or integrate. Right. And because of that, her child was taken away. Someone else decided she was not able to be a mother. And so the family was ruptured. And now the child was with people who, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, are actually just collecting funds.
Absolutely. Having been involved in that system for a while, when I was living in LA, as one of my very first internships in grad school, I was a part of that system. And the level of brokenness was so astounding to me, and the level of trauma of a lot of those kids at the hands of the foster family because they weren't collecting the check. And the cycle of trauma that just continues for these children and the levels they've experienced by the age of 4, 5, and 6 was devastating to witness. And so what I'm hearing is something got activated in you that realized the structure and the problem begins with the lack of support for the new mother who's just given birth.
Yeah.
We don't have an ecosystem for a mother who's just given birth to then for her to be cared for in those first 3 months because that's her 4th trimester.
Right.
No one's caring for the mother, because really her only job then is to be healing and caring for the baby and bonding with the baby.
Yeah.
So you already started to notice that there's something backed up in this whole system that is where the real problem lies.
Yeah, and of course, there's a myriad of reasons that a child might not be able to stay in a home. This was just one example, but it led me down this path of trying to understand where the deficits are in how women are birthing. And so it wasn't just the deficit in the 4th trimester or the postpartum, it was also what she recounted to me, which was I had no idea what I was doing, right? So there's even in pregnancy, there's no birth education, there's no holding. Of course, conscious conception is a stretch for many.
Oh, yeah.
So, it comes upon us and we don't know what to do because we're just such a fragmented society when it comes to the experience of the woman's body.
Yes. Can you say that again? That is so potent.
Yeah, we are a fragmented society when it comes to the woman's body.
This makes me just...
Right?
It's tragic and yet so true.
It's so true. I mean, even down when we first begin to bleed.
Yes.
How many of us, were just given a maxi pad and said, go to the bathroom, figure it out, or, how did our mothers and the women around us respond to that initiation? So it begins very early on, this kind of in the dark, in the closet, about the body, about what it's capable of, how to handle it, how we're supported. And then, of course, that trickles into electing partners, how we handle conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and so on. And
so many places where we're disembodied and all this incredible, magical portal, mystery, endless opportunity.
Yeah.
We're afraid of it. We're ashamed of it. We don't know where to go, who to talk to about it. And many of the stories that get passed down, or even when we look to our peers or in media or as we search for information, if we even search, we often find stories of fear. I feel like from the very first period all the way through menopause and everything in between, from cycling to pregnancy to breastfeeding, we have division between women on all of those topics, and which we will talk about. And we also are laden with endless amounts of shame with all of those. So no wonder a woman goes in and we can so easily see how she just gives herself up. She lays on her back. She becomes numb to the experience and says, just do whatever you've got to do and let it be over. Right. And I know, having taught natural childbirth for 10 years, after having given birth to my first naturally, I had this feeling, Eyla, every woman I saw that was pregnant, I was like feral. I wanted to go up to every woman and say, do you know how incredible your body is? Do you know how powerful your body is? Don't go to the hospital. Like, you can do this. And I realized this probably is not the most constructive way to walk around like Trader Joe's, Amanda. Maybe you should channel this a little differently. So while I was pregnant with my second, I became trained and certified in natural childbirth education. And I went on to do that for 10 years and co-created an app with my best friend, which is one of the first pregnancy apps called iBirth. All that to say, I witnessed so much fear as women would come in to begin my 12-week course with their partners, so much uncertainty and endless stories passed down through friends and families of trauma and death and all of this darkness. And so it makes sense why women would naturally just say, numb me out of the experience, wake me up when it's over. But you and I think, have come to know in our years of this work what actually happens then. And this could be a 12-series conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But for the circumstances of today, I want to hear from you. So this happens, you're having this conversation with this woman, you're starting to make these connections, and then from there, can you get us to like, how did you then decide, I'm going to make a career of this?
Yeah, I just looked online for birth doula, birth support. I just started searching keywords, and I found a training that was up in Port St. Lucie. it's like a 2-day training on how to support women in birth.
Yes.
And so I went to the training, and even in the training, which was lovely for what it was, I was like, that's it. So now I'm supposed to be qualified
Oh, yes, 2 days.
to hold this space for this huge rite of passage. And what I learned in that training was really what I would say is like how to be an accomplice to an otherwise violent situation. And I was like, oh, okay. So I understand this more clearly now. And even the women who are stepping in to support are actually still working indirectly for the system that is
Absolutely.
keeping things fragmented. Okay, information, right? And then I found I became pregnant and I found the Dr. Bradley childbirth
That's what I'm
method.
educated
That's what
in.
you educated in. And I just loved it. I mean, I loved it. I went and I did
We are kindred spirits.
I know,
Eyla.
right? Look at that. I don't know many people who still know about Bradley.
No.
And I took the class. It was revolutionary for my partner at the time, for myself. He got so involved. And so I decided I'm going to take the training to be a teacher. And it was all happening at the same time. It was my birth experience. I wouldn't change anything about it. We gave birth at home, and he was my support person. My midwife was, the perfect midwife for me at the time. And then after that, I began studying more and more. I started working with women here and there between being a stay-at-home mom, finding time on Saturdays where, they'd spend 2 hours together. I did a lot of attachment parenting, still to this day. And so I never really left her for an extended period of time. I was able to integrate that work into my mothering, which was just a really perfect confluence for me. But very quickly, I was on high demand for birth doula work. So I'd started bringing her with me, and I would tell the families she's coming with me, and they were like, of course. Some people were like, is it really appropriate for a child to be here? And I was like, there's a missing link here, right? You're missing the point, because it can be a communal experience. It historically was a communal experience.
Yes.
So it was very smooth and just a really beautiful integration for me. But then I opened Uncovering Birth. So, began training other doulas, began training childbirth educators. We have a postpartum doula training that's about to start in October. So that's really where I said, all these other trainings, I took a variety of trainings, and none of them really satisfied what I was experiencing in the field. It wasn't satisfying the one-on-one trauma work that I had begun doing with women in postpartum. So I said, I'm going to create these programs so that women who want to support the community, who want to shift our consciousness around this experience, who want to also personally heal, because these are very alchemical mentorships and containers where women, we were chatting earlier, they can have a redemptive experience by stepping into the space and supporting women and guiding
So a
women.
lot of the women, and I'm not assuming at all, we're saying all women, but a lot of the women who come to Uncovering Birth to get trained by you to become doulas are sometimes coming from the place of having had a traumatic first birth experience or even second.
Yeah, totally. Or by the time they got to their third, they did it unmedicated and they said, wow, I've awakened to something, a whole world of possibility.
Yes.
And even their postpartum was easier, so they saw the full effect of what could be possible when they stepped a little bit outside of the conventional framework.
Yes.
And then some women, they've never had children, and they can't, and they want to serve in this way. And so that really was my arc. But yeah, even in the last 5 years, I've noticed that the birth community is also quite polarized.
Yes. What do you think is happening there?
I think it's a lot of political ideology, that's really become woven into the birth space, and it's interesting what happened with, not to get too political, but what happened with the liberal community. It's so different from what it was in the 70s and 80s to what it is now. And it was like, I think many of them, because I was a part of it growing up, had to say, well, I do believe in this, but I don't believe in that. So I guess I'm just going to walk this way. And that's also going to mean a complete dissolution of gender roles and a complete dissolution of the sacredness that it is to be a woman and it is to be a man. And so what's happening is a lot of these old school organizations like La Leche League you
The
know.
Leche League is how I even figured out how phenomenal my body was.
Yes, me too.
I learned everything from going to La Leche League meetings between clients when I was newly practicing and pregnant, literally watching them, nursing babies everywhere, toddlers running up to nurse, and just being like, wait a minute, this feels very different than anything that's been passed down to me about womanhood.
Yeah.
I have chills right now as I'm talking, and that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And it impacted me so strongly that La Leche League led me to Bradley, led me to everything in this book, led me to literally all the work I do. My feminine was turned on and ignited, and I realized sitting in La Leche League, even already as a new psychologist in the field, in private practice, I already realized everything I'd been trained, and I hear this a lot from doctors in the medical community, everything I'd been trained to learn and know about human behavior had a huge gaping, there was like this big area that had not been covered, and that was the power of the innate feminine. And I witnessed it when I was watching these women. But what was fascinating to me is there was something about, and I know you'll understand this, there was something about, to attend La Leche League almost mean you had to be like a real hippie.
Right.
Like you were kind of out there. Maybe you let's just say that. But I thought there's got to be a way that a modern woman can also blend, because I'm a fairly modern woman, that I can blend the modern lifestyle with the ancient knowing of the innate wisdom that my body was born with. So that became my mission, is how do I take these different schools of thought and blend them. Also why politically, like I don't land necessarily anywhere other than this for humanity, because I don't believe that this ideology goes into this cohort and then this belief has to sit here. I am way bigger than that to be put in some binary. I see the world as so much more nuanced. And so I think that it really is fascinating that La Leche League was such a opening and a portal for you as it was for me, and why I literally serve in the way that I do now, because we don't have enough women speaking to this unbelievable wisdom that gets unlocked inside of a woman when she merges with the wisdom of her body rather than enters these experiences with complete fear.
Yeah.
And says, I just want to disconnect from it. I want nothing to do with it. So, and I remember having my first birth, like the thought that I would get an epidural to me on such a miraculous day, I wanted to become the next version of me. And I knew that I would have to do that through that initiation.
Yeah.
And part of me would die that day so that another part of me would have space to be born. Why do you think that there is also such division in women when it comes to natural birth versus medicated birth, nursing versus not nursing, attachment parenting versus not? Why are we so divided rather than being curious? We're so critical rather than, I'm curious. Tell me more about your experience.
That's an excellent question. There's so many dimensions to that, and where would I even begin? I mean, when I've had anesthesiologists come to my birth classes because they know the impacts that it can have, that these procedures can have on women.
Oh, yeah.
So there's one, from a hospital in Miami, and he brought his wife to the class. He said, I want her to understand, because she can't see it from my perspective, because I'm her husband, and I, because my classes are for couples specifically, right?
Yes.
With Bradley. So he said, I want her to understand what's limited, what's possible, what's not possible. And so even he said, like, I picked this because it was a highly lucrative career for me. And what I've seen over the decade, and a half now that he'd been in the field was like, I would never want my wife to do this. So that was very telling to me, because I was always just an advocate for relaying evidence-based information and tying in whatever ancient wisdom that I knew. I have a background in anthropology and family systems. And so I was always weaving that in to really highlight the mother-baby dyad. But when he said this to me, and I said, there's more here. So that's when I kind of went down this rabbit hole of trying to understand how this kind of disassociative action we take, which is medicating, consciously, purposefully medicating ourselves for this initiation, what does that mean, and how does it impact the rest of the woman's journey? And where does it come from? The desire to do that, which is your field, right? Where does that desire come from? Yeah. So it was like suddenly there was like this, past, present, and future that I was witnessing. Like what happened leading up to this point that she would feel the need to disconnect from this? Is that something we can talk about? And then how can I relate to her what's limited after she makes these choices, right? And if they have to happen for whatever reason because there's a turn of events that occur, how can she recover from that and restore the mother-baby dyad? So I think that there's a lot of division when it comes to medicated versus unmedicated, because women say, it's my body, it's my choice. And if I don't want to deal with the pain, I don't want to deal with the pain. But I don't think most of those women know the implications of that choice.
I think that's what's really important for us to talk about, is I don't think most women understand when they open that door what they're really fully stepping into. And I don't think, what I see is we have a lack of informed consumers. Right. I don't think women really understand what their yes or no is then going to lead to, and the level of complication and fallout from that place. Yes. That is what is alarming to me, because you and I both know. I've had women say to me, oh, well, easy for you to say, I had a really complicated situation. My baby almost died. Thank goodness I was in the hospital so I could have that emergency C-section. Right. But when I investigate and I stay curious, what I also find out, she was induced at 39 weeks because she was uncomfortable and wanted to just have the baby. And then from there, we know oftentimes Pitocin is so overwhelming and intense to withstand. And it's not natural for the mom or the baby. So the baby's heart rate starts to dip. Right. They tell any mother in such a vulnerable situation, oh, the baby's heart rate is now dipping. Right. We might have to do something emergency. She gets higher doses of epidural to relax her, hoping to relax the baby. Then the contractions slow down. Now we give a little more Pitocin. So you can already see, you and I know this vicious cycle. And now we're rushing her for emergency C-section. And she has the story of, thank goodness I was in the hospital. Yeah. And I think, oh, my love, the only reason you had an emergency C-section was because you were in the hospital. Right. Because it's like picking an apple before it's ripe from the tree and forcing something that is not ready. Her body is not ripe and ready. The baby's not ready. And so when we go against Mother Nature, there is always a price to pay.
Always a consequence. Yeah.
Always. And then that bonding, you and I, all of the ways that it interferes then with the bonding while the mother's healing and nursing and on. And so it's not as clear-cut as, I just don't want to feel the pain.
It's not that clear-cut. And when you get down to it, I don't know if you experienced this in your classes, there's breakthroughs that can happen between the man and the woman in their relationship just by taking that class together. It might be the first time that they've ever had an opportunity to discuss how they want to even parent, because they're exposed to new information about newborn procedures, birth options, right? And men, in the way that they think, I think that this type of childbirth education really speaks to them, because there's a cause and effect. There's so much about cause and effect and informed consent, right? Something like hypnobirthing is much more difficult for males to tap into because it's really body-focused, self-hypnosis, and it's not tangible for
And they
them.
want to be a part of it. I think the men are like, tell me what to do, I'll help. Yeah. And that's what this childbirth education is all about. The partner, and I had a lot of couples that were lesbian couples would come to my work as well. It's like the partner wants to know, when she is in this much pain, and this is, and I also just want to say for those listening, there's a difference between pain and there's a difference between pain with a purpose. Right. And when you merge with the pain for the purpose, and I remember talking to my babies. I didn't know their gender, but I remember talking to them in birth, and in this energy of like, I got you, my love, and thank you. It makes me so emotional. We're doing this together. Yeah. I wasn't disconnected from their experience as well. They were coming into the world. They were working with me. Yeah. And my husband, when we talk about surrender, I've had some more experiences in my life since, but I will be honest with you, in our 29 years of marriage, 30 years together, Eyla, the two most surrendered moments of my life were when I gave birth. Mm-hmm. And the reliance on him, and it bonded us in a way that I am certain no other experience could have bonded us. And he'd never seen me in that kind of a way before. And also the honor and respect. Like something shifted for him as me, seeing me as a woman, seeing my body, what it was capable of, and being able to be in that experience that no one else will ever fully understand because we were there in that room together.
Yeah.
Is something that bonds you and creates, even just through an eye gaze across a room, like, wow.
Yeah.
You had me and I had you, and that was unlike anything.
Yeah.
And I want that for couples as well. I feel like we're really missing that element.
Yeah, we are, and what can come through and making the commitment to just go for those weeks and commit to each other in that time. It's like you're committing to that third body of the birth or that third body of the relationship, right? And men get really involved in their specific way. Men don't need to catch babies, they don't need to be in the trenches, so to speak, but their presence and the containment that they offer in that experience is what can allow for that surrender to really take place. And this is where the pain becomes actually tolerable, where it becomes this, rhythmic thing that the woman goes through rather than resist, because she knows that everyone around her has got her.
Yes.
Right? So the body's not going to create something that it can't handle.
That's right.
And so when she has that proper containment and holding, and she has the knowledge, right? Because it's like they say, do I need a vaginal exam? Do I need the monitoring? And I'm like, I can tell you where you are in your process just by observing your behavior.
Yes.
And the things you say to me and the way you're breathing. So we don't actually need all this stuff. And when she knows that, she can be more at ease and rest in the experience and allow the experience to take over. It's a largely autonomic process, right?
It really is.
However, the stories and the belief systems and the past traumas can impact the unfolding.
Yes, absolutely.
And so our responsibility as women is to say, I have more actual control over this than I think I do, because I have the capacity to change my beliefs. I have the capacity to reconnect with my body. I have the capacity to look at this differently.
Yes.
So it's really not out of our control in some ways.
It's so interesting. At my event that I do, my live event, the Magnetic, about a year ago, there was a very tenured labor and delivery nurse who stood up at one point. And I was speaking to someone had asked me a question from the audience about birth. And I spoke to it. And I spoke similar to the way we're speaking right now, very raw, very unfiltered, as is my style, because I don't want to gatekeep this beautiful information from women. You and I know that everyone will make the decision for themselves, but I refuse to keep it to myself for fear of triggering someone else. And we have to be really responsible for ourselves if we're getting triggered by two women talking about natural birth, to go deeper and be like, I'm so curious, why am I so angry when they talk about this? Or why do I want to judge them or make them dangerous or wrong? As opposed to questioning the system that would even create such division.
Sure.
But this very tenured labor and delivery nurse stood up and she said, I just want to say every single thing that Dr. Amanda Hansen just said is absolutely true. I had to leave the field after, I think it was like 50 years at that point. She had been, it was her only career. And she said, because what I saw was crushing me to continually witness. And I want to reference back to, where this all started for you and this woman and this beautiful, just knowing that you wanted to take time with her and give her that space for that conversation. When and I'm sure you probably do this as well, when the final baby of my groups was born, and there would be like 10 or 12 couples for each 12-week session. When that final baby was born, we would wait 6 weeks, and then I would host a reunion. And the couples would come back with their newborn baby, and we would have a potluck, and we would sit on the floor for hours, and every single couple would get to tell their birth story.
Yeah.
Inevitably, in every single group, there was always one, maybe two, who did not have the experience that she had so hoped or desired in her birth plan. And Eyla, without fail, almost every single time, when she tells the story, there is so much trauma laden in it, and it's not coming from a place of her beating herself up about it as much as trying to make sense to move forward and heal. Because I've literally had women relate the experience to me. They almost felt like they were raped. They were on their back. Next thing they know, they were being full episiotomy was happening. No one was telling them what was happening. And there was people rushing around in her most intimate parts of her body without communication. And she felt like she was just an object.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, goodbye, good luck. There is no system built to support these women. My best girlfriend that I met through all of this childbirth training, she is a CEO of Nest Collaborative, which is an incredible boots on the ground initiative and small business that connects women with lactation support. And even what happens there is so terrifying. And even what happens as it relates to big insurance companies and not wanting to fund and support women to get the support and the breakdowns of the system. And then what happens, I think if we were to put an umbrella over this, would you agree that we don't bring honor to the experience of birth and postpartum?
Absolutely not. We really don't. I mean, what I see most often with my contemporaries, women in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s, and into 50s even birthing, I want to get through this as quickly as possible because I've been told that, I can enjoy the pregnancy, or maybe I'm told I'm not even supposed to enjoy it, but I can get through the pregnancy, and then I just really want to skip over the birth and just have the baby and whatever comes along with this kind of like new accessory to my life. It's like that's
the accessory.
That's like the thing, right? Even like, the baby registry. Like I need all these different items because I've been told or I read it online. And I'm like, this is all garbage. Like, how about let's redirect this to postpartum support. Let's redirect this to birth education. Let's get a meal train going.
Yes.
Like all the things that would actually hold you in this experience. Because as much as we want to suppress it, there is a raw opening that happens. Whether it goes super well and it's uneventful, or it goes in a different direction and it feels incredibly traumatic, it is a raw opening for the mother because, like you said, there's a new identity that's being formed and emerging. So if we have women around us who have a belief system that we're trying to shift out of, it's going to be really hard. I have women who come to me and say, I really want to do a home birth. I'm not telling anyone. We're just telling our family we're doing it at the hospital. And if it's successful at home, we'll just say that it happened fast and the baby was born at home. But if it happens at the hospital because we have to transfer, then we'll just already be and I'm like, what is this, right?
So much hiding and shame around.
Much hiding and shame, and my friends would think it's crazy, and people have told me it's irresponsible, right? So there's no honor for the woman's intuition and capacity to do it.
Yes.
So she has to kind of, many women will kind of sidestep, or they'd say, I'd love to do a home birth, but not for the first one because we really, we have to make sure it's safe. So then I'm asking people to really question what their definition of safety is to begin with, And so, there really is no honor for this rite of passage. And of course, the system is really designed. Their one goal is to have a mother and a baby come out alive, no matter how it takes to get there, right? The process is kind of irrelevant.
And if we can charge a little more, we'll add some more interventions, and that sure would be a great business plan.
Oh my goodness. My stepdaughter gave birth in December at a hospital in Detroit. And I was her doula, I was her support, and she did it all unmedicated. They had been pushing magnesium sulfate. They even offered her at one point a narcotic because they were like, you might want to sleep. And it was just...
sleep while you're bringing a human into the world.
Yeah, you might want to rest and recover. Labor doesn't need to be like this. But she was totally... I mean, it was incredible. It was her third. And she got a bill the next day on her phone through the portal. And it was like all these medications that she never received were on the bill. Procedures. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
how fraudulent.
Totally. And so anyway, it's there is no reverence for this initiation. And I know that in the natural birth community, we think it's taking over, but we're just in an echo chamber. I'm sorry to say.
You're right.
And
right.
Postpartum, it's even worse. I mean, that's why we've been working on this postpartum doula training for the last 2 years, because there really need to be more women on the ground.
Eyla, I'm sending everyone.
who are
I'm
available
so
for
excited that
this.
you exist and your work exists. I mean, I'm beside myself right now. I feel like I just won the lottery. But I do think you're right. We have to keep building these systems. We have to stop hiding and feeling that we can't talk about these conversations openly. I feel a massive responsibility in spaces to speak about this on behalf of all women. And I would say that, 2 points I want to talk to you about also are, one, I think that there's a fear because our bodies are so mysterious and there's so much shame. I think there's also a fear of the vulnerability of what happens when you are in labor, because you and I both know the most primal sounds of my life came when I was giving birth. And there's even that moment, it transition as an animal of its own. That's that stage between first and second labor. I mean, first stage and second stage, like the contractions and the pushing, we have that transition where we're double peaking and you feel like I absolutely can't. And we always know like, okay, this is the moment you're about to get into the pushing phase. There were noises coming from my body that definitely sounded very orgasmic.
Yeah.
And I think that for the average person, even that is uncomfortable. To hear a woman for hours in that level of moaning and it being something that they think is so intimate. I also believe that there's a discomfort to even hear women doing that.
Of course.
For hours and hours. I even had someone say to me as I was talking about the fact I was going to do natural childbirth, I'm like, well, you don't have to be a martyr. And I said, where did you interpret that I was being a martyr? I'm actually just answering the natural call of my body's wisdom.
Yeah.
But I do think as well, there are women who are so uncomfortable with their sensuality. There's even layers there because it even opened up my access to my sensuality as I tapped into that power of my body.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I mean, that's a huge piece of the surrender, right? Am I going to be in an environment where that can happen? And I know that, I mean, the hospital is set up. I've been in so many births where I've heard nurses say, be quiet. It's okay. You don't have to, if you're in pain, it's like she's not in pain. She's just actually passing energy through her voice.
Yes.
Because it needs to go somewhere. So it's like moaning, groaning, and all of these things that even for the nurses, it's like, for them, it's an indicator that she needs to be silenced, right?
That is it right there.
Everyone's like, oh.
That she needs to be silenced.
She needs to be silenced. But then what does that really trace back to? It's like the good girl syndrome, right? That most of us have been conditioned with. It's like, don't be too loud, be quiet.
That's not ladylike.
That's not ladylike. Don't do this,
Yes.
Like my daughter is like, she doesn't wear shoes and she never has. And like, I'm hard pressed to get her to put on shoes. She climbs trees and she's, the neighbors are always like, oh, you're not wearing shoes again. You're going to step on glass. I'm like, but where's the glass? We live out in the woods. Like, where's the glass? And, has she had her tetanus shot? She could step on a nail. I'm like, why are you saying this? But this is such
fear-based.
It's a fear-based, unconscious programming where it's like, oh, you want to give birth? Oh, think about this and that could happen and this could happen. And, definitely get the epidural. And so when people say that, I say, did you get the epidural? And they say, yeah. I'm like, did you love your birth? Was it the most amazing thing? Would you do it again? And they're like, oh, no. Like, I'm like, so then why are you selling this thing?
Yes.
And so it's just, we are so unconscious with the way that we speak to women. How often when you were pregnant did women kind of offload information onto you? Look out for this. You're going to want to do this. And it's all of this like unresolved trauma.
It is.
That's just being leaked onto these women who are actually totally ripe for some sort of restructuring and integration and excitement that they could be accessing for their birth, but they're not.
And I also feel like it's really hard to experience surrender and to merge with the wisdom of your body and trust. Because when you think about when I watch animals giving birth, and one of my sons for the past 4 years was part of his high school experience was also he worked on a farm in the mornings and he assisted so many calves as they were being born. And when he would explain the experience, they look for somewhere in the pasture to isolate and be alone. And they have this process uninterrupted. That's we really are not going to open and surrender to the experience if we constantly have people coming in. Please don't be so loud. You know, another hour or two, and the doctor really wants you to go ahead and take some Pitocin if this doesn't progress. You're on a watch. You're on a clock, and there's an expectation like, let's move you along. It's almost like a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
There is and whether anyone would ever admit this or not, I am of the strong belief that the moment you enter that hospital, you are put on a time clock.
Oh, for sure.
And there's an expectation if that baby is not born within a certain amount of hours, they will do whatever at all costs to make sure that that baby is born so they can clean up that bed and bring in the next.
Yeah, I've had a few labor and delivery nurses come through my trainings to become doulas. They had to, for the sake of their health and nervous system, exit that system. And so and they love working with women, but not in that way anymore. And they've all told me, yeah, there is for sure this unspoken clock. And if the bags of water have been released, there's a certain time clock there. And then we offer this. It's a formula.
It is.
Right? Regardless of the woman's unique makeup, experience, identity, there's just a formula. And women think that this is what I have to do in order to have a successful birth. You know, I'm being guided by these professionals. No one's ever telling them or showing them how to, cultivate that inner yes or that inner no in their body. Because it's something that we often don't cultivate as young girls.
That's right.
And
we can't expect that now that we've entered birth, all of a sudden we're going to have this incredible experience. Right. So what I'd like to ask you is for our listeners, as we're closing out this conversation that I have so many other thoughts and ideas and wish we could continue, and I'm sure we'll have further episodes together. What would you tell our listeners who are saying, gosh, that all sounds like magical and amazing, but I'm terrified and I could never be brave enough to step into that. What would you want them to know or hear from your wisdom, from the front lines? What would you want them to hear?
Well, there's a world of possibility available to us, and we don't even know a fraction of it yet. So just getting into a beautiful space with birth education can just make more possibilities available to the woman in many areas of her life. And it's not about, okay, if you suddenly decide you're doing a free birth at home with no assistance out in the woods, this is the right way. This is the most empowered way. That's not what this is about. It's not a meritocracy. It's not hierarchical. It's actually just about what is the expression of your truth. And so this really is an opportunity to say, where would I feel, what would make me the happiest?
Oh, I love that question.
Without, don't think about the logistics. Don't think about the finances. Don't think about any of it. The safety, just what would make me the happiest? When you envision your birth, what is the outcome? And if it's a vision that looks medicalized and unsafe, we have to do some work around re-envisioning the experience. Right. And then from there, we can reverse engineer. What do I need? What are the tools? What are the resources? What do I have to reprioritize to get to that final vision I've cultivated?
Yes.
Right? And if it's, some women say, I just want a safe, healthy baby. I just want a healthy baby, a safe experience. There's more available.
Yes.
There's absolutely more available. And you can have both. You can have the healthy, safe experience, you can have the positive outcomes, and you can have the things that make you feel good and safe. They're not exclusive from one another. So that's what I would say. There's so much possible, and it's just about unlearning and relearning. So what are we willing to acknowledge? What are we willing to let go of? What are we willing to see that we've not been willing to see?
Yes. There is so much available. And I feel like these conversations are imperative and urgent to keep having so that women can hear. They can hear the possibility. They can hear what we've experienced as our truths. And I would, if I could wrap this up somehow and gift this to every single woman, it would be one of the greatest things that I would be able to ever give her because and when I say give her, it would be the trust in her body to do this because I know the power she accesses, and I also know how that trickles down to the children, and because our society is in such disarray right now, and we are really needing some maternal guidance. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful baselines to begin when we look in the family system. Eyla, I am so profoundly profoundly grateful for your work and what you do in the world and for answering this call that was placed inside of you for all of the reasons and showing up the way that you do. I cannot wait to send pregnant women to your way. I can't wait to send women who are looking for like, what is my next move or my next career? And I work with a lot of women who are leaving very unfulfilling careers and wanting that next step. And I'm just, as you were talking, I'm like, wow, I can see this for so many people who are wanting to support women, but not necessarily knowing what industry or how. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for everything.
Thank you. I mean, and I would say that this gift is in all of us, actually, as women. It's not someone who's a birth aficionado. It's not someone who even loves kids or would declare that. It's actually that space holding is an innate gift we all have, and it can be cultivated if we want it to be.
Yes, I'm so happy you said that. There's nothing unicorn or special about either of us that we love this or we're able to do this. It is accessible and available to any single woman.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time and for all of your knowledge.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.